So we can start. So we can start the session.
Very good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to today's session on E-Invoice. Today's session is a little important in two ways. Point number one, those people who are already generating E-Invoice, there are some news for you. Point number two, there are people who are doing E-Invoice for a parent company and the other group companies are likely to get E-Invoice basis the turnover limit. For those, some of you who are yet to get into E-Invoice, maybe this session will give you a brief overview. I'm not getting into the details of E-Invoice completely, but I'll give you some basics. And however, my colleague Bharati would do a demo of how the E-Invoice product works with the GST then. Okay. To start with, some basics of E-Invoice and the legal provisions. Even before that, let me introduce GST then. GST then is a cloud GST return filing service provider. We are an ASP and a GSP, which is application service provider and GST Suvidha provider. We assist taxpayers in filing their GST returns, GST 1, 3B, 9 and 9C. Our portal is used most people for building their reconciliation, which is books versus 2A or 2B, or upon filing GST R1, reconciling their 1 versus the sales register, at both at the PAN level report or at a GSTN level report. And there are e-level reports. There are a lot of other free utilities like JSON to Excel converter, GSTN validator for a small limit. People also consume an API, right? I am one of the product manager assisting, giving guidance to the application. And this product is being used for more than 30,000 users. Millions of reports have been downloaded and lakhs of invoices get processed every day. Just to start with the E-Invoice. E-Invoice it has been introduced first in September 20 and it went live in October 20 for turnover more than 500 crores. Later, the limit went to 100 crores, 50 crores, 20 crores. Today, anyone whose turnover is 10 crores and above, anyone whose turnover is 10 crores and above, by virtue of notification 17/2017-22, everyone have to do E-Invoice. This has gone live on 1st October 22. That means anyone who is having their turnover more than 10 crores in any of the previous financial year. When I say previous financial year, starting from your 17-18 up until the financial year which is concluded now, which is 22-23. So any of the turnover in any of these periods, if the turnover is greater than 10 crores, then E-Invoice is applicable. Question that may come up is during the year, let's say financial year 22-23, the turnover has crossed 10 crores in Jan 23. In Jan 23, assuming it has crossed, the E-Invoice is applicable from 1st of April. So the applicability has to be checked in any of the preceding financial years. And if it is applicable, beginning the financial year is what one have to adopt. This is one common question that comes up. And please note, the turnover 10 crores is in any of the preceding financial year. That means in the current financial year, if my turnover falls below 10 crores, you may ask a question that I need to do E-Invoice? The answer is yes, you still need to do the E-Invoice, even though the previous year turnover reduced, but in any of the year you have crossed. And friends, please feel free to put your questions because some of you have been already using the E-Invoice, but you may have some questions. The mother notification for this is notification 68/2019, where Rule 48 got amended and they said concept of INV1 has come in, and wherever e-invoice is applicable, if they are issuing any invoice other than e-invoice, they are saying that it is not a valid invoice. That means if it is not a valid invoice, the recipient input tax credit is also at risk. Recipient input tax credit is at risk. So wherever e-invoice is applicable, one has to generate e-invoice only. Where do I generate the e-invoice? Government has given a common notified common portal, and the first e-invoice portal was e-invoice 1.gst.gov.in. We are going to see about other portals. And government also has given a schema as to what should be the contents of the e-invoice. So both are available. Let's look at one by one. To start with, all of us have been using the government portal one e-invoice 1.gst.gov.in. However, there are new IRP portals that have come. IRP is the one who is registering your invoices. We will see this terminology. It started with e-invoice 1. Today, we have additional 5 portals. Where e-invoice 2.gst.gov.in. This is again maintained and operated by NIC, which is government entity. There are other IRPs who have come into the market. E-invoice 3, 4, 5, and 6. It is maintained and operated by Signet, ClearTax, E&Y, which is Ernst & Young, the TechMe, Iris. These are mainly they were all GSPs at one point. Now they have taken an additional license of providing e-invoice. Are they live? They are live. Can I generate an e-invoice with them? Yes, you can generate an e-invoice with them. Is it mandatory that I have to generate e-invoice only with one class of person? Answer is no. You can generate the e-invoice with any class of the portal. It is not necessary that the e-invoice has to be generated only with one portal. You have to generate. Answer is no. You can generate with any other portal. Eventually, e-invoice is mandatory. This is a facility which is given by the government by allowing additional IRPs to be in the market. Now, these being private players, they also provide some additional facility. Some of them are giving free, some of them are giving value addition services at additional cost. There are multiple things one can do. But the first one, e-invoice 1, which is the first portal, this is given free of cost to the all taxpayers, and one will be able to use this portal to generate e-invoice. So first of all, what is this e-invoice and why at all the government is asking to do this e-invoice? So to answer this, e-invoice is a new standard form of reporting, issuing an invoice. Everyone who is registered an e-invoice is applicable, they have to issue an e-invoice. So for whom it is not applicable? There is a class of people who is not applicable. It is SCZ, so it is a government authority or local authority, insurance company, banking company, goods transport and passenger transportation company. If it is admission to cinema, cinematographic film and others, it is exempt. Now, other than these people, other than these notified people, everyone are required where their turnover is more than 10 crores, e-invoice is mandatory and they have to do it. For what transactions? E-invoice is applicable only for a transaction which is B2B. If a B2B, if I'm making a supply to B2B, then e-invoice is applicable. If I'm making a supply to B2C, e-invoice is not applicable. If I am making an invoice, tax invoice, only then e-invoice is applicable. If I am making an exempt supply and making a bill of supply, e-invoice is not applicable. So for debit notes and credit notes, also e-invoice is applicable. For debit notes and credit notes also, the e-invoice is applicable. Where do I register? Government has given the various utilities. So right now there are additional IRPs. So you can use the additional IRPs, or you can use the first Go portal that is given by the government, e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. They have also given other utilities. So today I am using an accounting software. I don't know how to generate an e-invoice from my software because my software is not compatible. So they have given a free utilities. Someone has generated e-invoice. How do I verify? They give a tool to verify the signed e-invoice. They have also given a mobile app to read the QR code, the contents of it. Is my supplier has been enabled with the invoice? They have given a status where you can check list of the people where e-invoice is enabled. They have also given additional tools and utilities to verify. Let's understand the process of e-invoice. Let's understand the process of invoice. Someone has done a hand raise. We will take the questions at the end. Now let's look at the process of e-invoice. Please follow this slide very carefully. I'm sure some of you have already been doing it, you know. So whatever be your accounting software, using your accounting software, you will generate a JSON file. Now, if your accounting software is not compatible with generating a JSON file, you will get in touch with any application service providers like GSTzen who will assist you in generating a JSON file. This JSON file gets uploaded to the government portal. Could be manually one-on-one, or there is a mechanism called application data interchange. We call it as API. Through an API, the data gets interchanged. Once the data is interchanged, IRP does a validation that is everything correct or not. If it is correct, he gives back to the seller or the taxpayer a signed JSON. What I was given is a raw JSON, a signed JSON along with the QR code. It is being given. Now, what do I do with that? I will have to give it to buyer. If I have received the document from the government, I will have to issue it. What does the government do? What does the IRP do? IRP connects the data with the GST portal and updates in the GSTR1. Wherever e-way bill is required, he will also generate an e-way bill. The moment it is updated in R1, it means it is visible in buyer 2A on a real-time basis. Today, there is a need that has come. Where you have to check this 2A and R1 on a daily basis or a regular basis. Earlier, we used to do on a month and after the month, but we will have to do in advance. We will have to do before the month. Let us see why that requirement has come. First, let's understand certain terms and definitions that we use. E-invoice, we will have something called IRN, invoice reference number. It is a 64-digit alphanumeric number. Only when you have something like this, it will be treated as that you have generated an e-invoice. This is obtained from IRP. Who is IRP? IRP is a invoice registration portal. We have 6 portals where you can register the invoice. So as a taxpayer, I'll upload the data to the IRP. IRP will send me back the digitally signed invoice and the QR code. This is what we have seen in the process flow. This is the second terminology that you need to know. What is he giving? He is giving you a signed QR code. Okay. He is giving you a signed QR code. How does it look like? When you open the QR code, when you open the JSON, you will find some text, something like this. Acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date, and the IRN, which is 64-digit character. then the signed invoice and the signed QR code. The signed invoice and the signed QR code is also shared along with this. So the signed invoice, when you open it, you will see some junk characters. You will see some junk characters. This is not for a human being. This is for computers to understand. Even the signed QR code, it is for the computers to decode and put it into a QR code. There is an app that has been given. Using the app, when I validate, I will be able to decode. If I requested for e-waybill, I'll also be provided with the e-waybill data. So let's understand a little bit more about the QR code. What you have to do is whatever the QR code that you have received, you have to print it in the invoice. You have to print it in the invoice and then issue it to the customer, which means it is mandatory that you have to print the invoice with a QR code. Rule 46 has been amended, ensuring that you have to print. Should IRN be printed? Not required. The QR code has to be printed. IRN is optional. QR code is mandatory. So what does this QR code contains? This QR code is to authenticate that you have generated an e-invoice. It's a signed QR code and it contains high-level information about the goods. It doesn't have all the information about the products that you are selling. It will only have some 10 lines. Who is the seller? Who is the buyer? What is the invoice value? How much? How many line items are there? What is the HSN code? Only few information that will be there in the QR code. Now, GST then, how would they help? Wherever you have an ERP, today it is expected that you will have to generate an e-invoice and issue. Let's say Tally as an accounting software or anything, whatever you use. So there will be a connector data which gets exchanged with the GST then, and the GST then will be they're connecting to the IRP portal and generates an e-invoice, which is the QR code, which is and the IRN. This is stored in the GST Zen cloud and also issued back to the customers. And when I say issued back, you can automatically send an email to your customer by doing a digital signature. A common question that being asked is, even after the e-invoice has come, should I need to do a digitally signed document? The answer is yes, because you are issuing the document to him. You have to sign the document in you, whether physically or digitally. So GST then also helps in issuing this document to the customers. Now the question that comes is at what time I have to do? Can I do all this at the end of the month? What is the time frame in doing this? This is where the next notification that has come, the generation time, the government is now saying is, I will start with the taxpayers whose turnover is more than 100 crores. If they are generating an e-invoice, that means they are reporting to the government portal. They should report to the government portal within 7 working days. Within 7 working days from the time in which they have created the invoice. It is expected to be done on a real-time basis. We never know the problems that would come up. It's like there is accountant was on leave, data entry errors, internet is down, system is not working, whatever be the thing. But government says that, okay, you can report within 7 days. You can report within 7 days. What will be done after it? After that, I will not allow you to report. Okay, what will happen if I don't generate an invoice? Your customers will not accept this a regular invoice where invoice is applicable. Rule 138, sub rule 2, where it is mandatory that if you are carrying the documents and where invoice is applicable, you have to carry an invoice. From the seller side, it is a penalty on the non-compliance with the law. From the buyer side, rule 48, sub rule 5 says if is someone issuing a document other than this, it is not a valid invoice. Rule section 16 says if you're not having a valid invoice, you cannot get input tax credit. So the buyer's input tax credit is at risk. So on both the sides, there is a risk, both from the supplier side and on the buyer side. Hence, it is mandatory that wherever e-invoice is required, e-invoice has to be generated. So when is this 7 days concept coming from? 7 days concept is coming from yesterday, effective from 1st May onwards, this has become live. So that means if the invoice date is 1st April 23, the reporting date has to be on or before 8th April. Within 7 days, it has to be done. For what documents? It should be for everything: invoice, credit note, and the debit note. For all the documents where e-invoice is getting generated, this concept of 7 days is applicable. So within 7 days, one has to generate an e-invoice. So the timestamp between the generation date, where is this timestamp? Let me show it back. Is when you see this, it will always say that what is your invoice date and what date you have generated. So the gap between these two dates, cannot be your document date and the generation date. The gap between these two dates should not be more than 7 working days, not working days, 7 physical days. So this is something, a bigger compliance. Every corporate has to ensure that this is done, this is taken care. Any questions, please put your questions in the chat box. Let me take up some questions before I go to FAQs. So first and foremost question from Shakuntala: whether modification in GST number, is it possible after cancellation period? If yes, what is the procedure? Yeah, I'll come to the FAQs. The first FAQ which was argued, like, can I cancel the e-invoice? Answer is yes, you can cancel the e-invoice. So there are certain FAQs that I have prepared. So, can the invoice be cancelled? Yes. So to answer this question, invoice can be cancelled, but within what time? Within 24 hours. Okay, I don't want to cancel. I only want to correct the GST number. I want to correct the place of supply. I want to correct the date and other things. No, correction is not permitted. Next, whether this is for job work also? Yes. So, Mr. Sarke, yes, even this is for job work also, because it is for supply. If the job worker value of supply is more than 10 crores, he has to do invoice. Now, question that may come up is, my turnover is more than 100 crores. I am sending the goods to the job work. Job worker is doing some good work and sending it back to me. Is invoice applicable? No. The invoice is applicable only for tax invoice. When the goods are moving to the job work, it is delivery challan, so e-invoice is not applicable. But if the job worker's turnover is exceeding 10 crores, then he has to issue the e-invoice. A purchaser has registered office at Jaipur and branch in Jodhpur, GST number being the same within the same state. In such case, how to mention the address of Jodhpur in the invoice? Yeah, it's pretty simple. You will be your corporate office, dispatch office, whatever be the thing. There is no question of how. It is like your software should be able to take care of this. What are the consequences if we raise a backdated invoice as per GST law? Billing date is last date of the month. Creation date is today. For example, 31st March 2023 invoice has been raised on, let's say, 12th April 23. 12th currently now will not be permitted for more than 200 crores. Let's say I'll take the example as an invoice dated 30th April raised on 3rd May, which is today. What will happen? Nothing will happen. It is a valid invoice. You have done a procedural delay. No problem. It will be a revenue for the month of April or the May. It will be the revenue for the month of April only and not May. And will it be reported in GSTR1 of April or May? Even though the e-invoice is done on 3rd May, it will still be reported in the month GSTR1 of April, because the document date is the 30th April. Shirin, I didn't understand, when should I report within 7 days? I'm not getting. If the invoice date is 30th April, on or before 6th May, you will be generating submitting the e-invoice to the government portal. What are the penalties for non-generation of the e-invoice on time? Shubham sir, if you are not generating e-invoice on time, no issues. But as long as you are doing within those 7 days, fine. If you are not doing within 7 days, when you are moving the goods, not a valid document, hence 200% of the tax liability penalty under section 129. And from the recipient perspective, his input tax credit would be restricted under section 16 since it is not a valid document one is carrying. So Sachin is asking, how do we know the vendor is e-invoice applicable? The government portal has given the government portal has given a tool to check the status of the e-invoice. So he had seen, yeah. So you can, the status of e-invoice, whether it has been enabled or not, you can click on this link, enter the GST number, and you will be able to check that. Hope this answers the question section. Alim is asking, I want to know that how I can take claim if the party filed GSTR1 after the due date. Alim, now the credit is governed by with the section 16, read with rule 36 of rule 4. If the supplier is filing GSTR1 late, so after the due date, that is on say 11th, it would be visible in 2A, but not in 2B. You can take the credit only when it is visible in 2B. The month in which it is visible, you will have to take. Anju Shriram is asking, less than 10 crores is invoice not mandatory? As of now, it is not mandatory. How can we raise a credit note or a debit note in 7 days if the payment is received after 1 or 2 months? We raise the tax invoice based on engineer's recommendation, but the recipient is usually 1 or 2 months later. Will we face GST penalty? And absolutely no, Tushar. When they are saying credit notes, debit note, invoice 7 days, it means the document date to the reporting date. I have raised an engineering service invoice for, let's say, for 1 crore. E-invoice is done. 1 month later, the recipient has certified saying, no, my engineer did not accept value for this. He says, basis all the testing, you should have raised only invoice for 90 lakhs, you raised 1 crore. For the differential 10 lakhs, I am raising a credit note now after 30 days. No problem. Government is not restricting that. Let's say I've raised a credit note now, which is 3rd May. All that they are saying is report that to the government portal on or before 10th May. Venkatachari. We are raising e-invoice to the government department, but they had GST number with the TAN base. So how can we raise GST invoice? Venkatachari, earlier we had this problem, but today you can raise a tax invoice to B2G, business to a government. So the government will agree and accept the tax invoice with the TDS number as a TAN number in the GST number. You can write it, it will perfectly work. Vishal, can the PPT be shared after the session? Yes, on the registered email ID, you'll get a copy of this. Many times e-invoice portal is not working. What do we do? Shubham. Okay. Honestly, even I don't know what to do when the portal doesn't work. So, but my experience, NIC portal is one of the best in class with so much of the volume. Whole of from 2020 to now, 2 years, 9 months, I would have experienced the portal being down only 5 different times. Which means in these many years, it's only 5 times it is down. So many users, so many volume of transactions they are doing it. Superbly working. Alternatively, they have given other portals also. You can use them. You can wait. So, but most of the time they also give an announcement when it is not working. No problem, you can do it. I am late to cancel the e-invoice. The 24 hours period lapsed. Now, what do I do now? I am coming to R1 submission. Can I do the corrections? Shirin, this is a valid question. Now, I have realized the mistake of the data which is entered in the invoice only after 24 hours, or after my internal audit team has flagged it, or the invoice went to the dispatch section or to the recipient says, hey, this is not the invoice what I've asked for, this is not the goods that I've asked for. Now you are in a fix, what do I do? Can I issue a credit note? Answer is no, unless otherwise there is a supply and supply return has happened. This is a wrong invoice that got generated. You got to cancel it, but the portal is not allowing you. That's okay. The value that is reported in R1, in a while, Bharti is going to do a demo that the data that is reported in R1, not in books, in books, but not in the portal. What do we do? All those things that will be demonstrated. Earlier, people were using GST Zen reconciliation to do this R1 versus the portal once in a month. But now they have to do it every 5 days so that they can comply with the 7 days. There were people who are uploading it in a manual basis, but today there are APIs. I would recommend always people to use the APIs. Okay. Then Sandeep is asking that for hospitality industry, which is, let's say, a hotel, the service is rendered at the hotel premises, and the volume is less than 25 crores. Uploading e-invoice will be a concern for B2B. Why is it a concern? I don't see any concern. You may say, we have a service level agreement. I don't want the customer to be standing in front of my desk more than a minute. That's okay. E-invoice happens like this, fraction of seconds. You press a button, connects to the government portal, updates and generates it. It doesn't take any time. It happens instantly. Praveen is asking, do I need to do for debit note and credit note? Answer is yes, you have to do both debit note and credit note, Praveen. My Arjun's question, my invoice turnover is less than 10 crores. Do I need to do interstate? It is not nowhere linked with interstate and intrastate. 2 subsection 6 of the Act talks about aggregate turnover. You got to go by the aggregate turnover. Amit is asking, should this e-invoice be signed? It has come with a signature from the government portal. So if we look at it, if we see this invoice, it says this is digitally signed. This is digitally signed by the government. So still I have to sign, of course, yes. When government is giving you a document, they are authenticating, saying that yes, this is a valid document, they are putting their signature and giving. You can't use this signature in giving it to your customer. Government cannot be a party to a trade dispute. They cannot stand in the court. You are selling something, you have to sign, whether physically or digitally. Amit, you have to do it. In fact, there are many customers who use GSTs and services where the invoices, as and when it is generated on the cloud, a digital signature is affixed of the client and automatically is emailed to the customers. Mukesh question, in import condition where goods are purchased from outside India, who will generate an e-invoice? Valid question. E-invoice is applicable only when you make a B2B sale. In case of an import, it is not B2B. By the way, B2B means not business to business, it is registered, GST registered to a GST register. Person outside India is not GST registered, hence invoice is not applicable. Someone from server is asking this question. My invoice date is 17th April. I have generated invoice on 1st May 2023. Is it valid or not? Honestly, if the portal is accepting, it is valid. If the portal is not accepting, it is not valid. So portal has put this restriction for 100 crores and above from 1st May. So make sure you do it within 7 days. Karthik is asking, seller has failed to generate e-invoice in Jan 23 and he reported e-invoice GSTR1. So which means he has not done the e-invoice, but it is there in GSTR1, GSTR2A and 2B. So me as a recipient, how to safeguard the ITC? You need to take the declaration, necessary declaration that the e-invoice was not applicable, or the supply of goods and services has happened. Only if the proper officer is rejecting it, you can go for an appeal, and under principles of natural justice, you can get it. But how many can take the effort to do this? How can we make an e-invoice when customer do not have GSTN? iPhone, I was saying that e-invoice is applicable only when you are doing a B2B, business to business, business to customer, no invoice, no e-invoice. I would request people to just change their name. It's very rude on me to call Redmi and server. So someone is asking this question. LPG vehicles run on a different routes at the same time. Different invoice series have to be maintained for different route. How to manage that in the e-invoice? Government has no restriction in using multiple series of e-invoice. All that the government says in Rule 46 is each series has to be uniquely numbered and it has to be serially numbered. So I can, for a route traveling from MG Road to Whitefield can be route 1001, and vehicles moving from say Kormangala to Electronic City route 2001. So you can have as many as it. I think questions are going like Hanumanji tail. As I'm scrolling down, I'm seeing 5-6 questions getting added up. No worries. It would help some others doubt also. Alim is asking, in import conditions, how can we take claim ITC when bill of entry IGST is not showing into a out of syllabus question? I'll take it at the end. But by the way, just to answer, Rule 36 says you can take credit basis the bill of entry and not basis 2B. So Rule 36 sub Rule 4 is not applicable. 36 sub Rule 2 is applicable. KEPL is asking how to export goods e-invoice. Incomplete question. You're generating an invoice, you just need to do an invoice. SRK is asking, can I raise the invoice for debit note for purchase return? See, when a purchase return is happening, is someone who is buying the goods is returning back. That means I have sold, I'm getting the goods back. For me, sales return. For him, purchase return. Now, for me, I'll be issuing a credit note. That credit note is a credit note he will be accounting. He will not raise a debit note on me. Under GST, credit note and debit note has to be originated from the seller only. Whom sir is making the sale, they have to raise a credit note and a debit note. Anu Ramakrishna is asking, company turnover has exceeded 15 crores and we prepare e-invoice and client wants to know, mention the bill date as month end date, that is 30th. While I'm preparing the invoice on next month, 5th or 6th. Anu Ramakrishna, I think government has heard you and they said, I am giving you 7 days grace. So all that you have to do is by 7th of the next month, you will have to do invoice. Otherwise, you cannot do e-invoice. This issue will, classic issue will come up, all these software manpower recruitment agencies or periodical services, where end of the month people expect invoices. Anju Shriram is interstate turnover less than 10 crores e-invoice not mandatory? Not mandatory. It is not interstate, it is interstate plus intrastate, both to be less than 10 crores. I am getting e-invoice on the next day. Is it right or not? No problem. You get, as long as you get within 7 days, it is perfectly right. How to cancel our e-invoice after 1 week? Not even after 1 week, after 24 hours, you cannot cancel e-invoice, sir. We export the services like we provide services outside India. So e-invoice applicable? Yeah, e-invoice is applicable for exports. Exports, you have to do an e-invoice. GST e-invoice due date every month. There is nothing called e-invoice due date. Today you are generating an invoice, you have to do it. How to generate e-invoice across the counter sales where the customers don't wait for the invoice. Praveen sir, if it is an unregistered customer, there is no question of e-invoice. If it is a registered person, better they wait and collect the e-invoice. Is ISD invoices e-invoice applicable? No, e-invoice is applicable only for supply of goods or services. Shirin, can we see this recording? Yes, it is. We are live on YouTube. You will be able to see the recording. What about unregistered dealer? How to raise an e-invoice? Ashwin, e-invoice is not applicable for unregistered dealer. Perfect. I think whatever the questions that FAQs I want to cover, you have asked. E-Waybill, is it parallelly mandatory? Yes, E-Waybill is also mandatory. You can say E-Waybill is not applicable when e-invoice is there. Both are governed under different rules. What do I print on the invoice? You have to print the QR code. And during the transit, you do a digital display, that is sufficient. Will the e-invoice send it to the recipient? No, IRP is not going to do. You have to do it by yourself. What all information I should store in my database? Your acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date, and the invoice and the QR code. My turnover is less than 100 crores. Is this 7-day limit applicable to me? Very valid question. So 100 crores and above, the 7-day limit is applicable. If it is less than 100 crores, when you have to do an e-invoice, it is recommended within a week. Let's say invoice dated March 5th, 23. Can I do e-invoice today? Portal will accept, you will be able to do. Only for turnover less than 100 crores. Cancellation we have seen. Okay. So what we will do is, let us get into, I will not go into the schema, which is too much in detail. How you will have to generate an e-invoice. Assuming you are doing already generating an e-invoice through any service provider or your accounting software, well and good. But you are finding a struggle in doing it. Today, e-invoice is just a click of a button. You want to generate an e-waybill, data is there in your software, you press a button, data gets generated. The GST then has multiple offerings. Any of those offerings you can use and generate the e-invoice. What I will do is I will stop my session at this point, and I invite my colleague Bharti, who will walk us through various ways in which you can generate an e-invoice. And what is more important for today's session, given that this 7-day rule has come in, how do I read the data from books of accounts? How do I sync with the government portal and validate check what is it, if it is missing in the books of accounts and in the government portal? Could be a cancelled invoice. So cancelled in the books, not cancelled in the government portal. Or there is an invoice in the books of accounts and not in the government portal. That means someone has entered the invoice, did a data entry and forgot to generate an invoice. How do I find these anomalies? Would be taken by Bharti. Bharti, can you share your screen and explain how to generate an invoice and how do we reconcile? Maybe we can take, say, any of the old data and do one reconciliation and see.
Sure, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bharti from GST Zen. So, I'd be showing you the demo of GST, how to generate e-invoices through GST Zen. There are various methods which you can use. So, once you have signed up to GST Zen, so you can either go through APIs or you can use GST Zen Excel. We provide Excel utility that you can use to generate, as well as it can be generated through our billing software. So once you log in, this is the dashboard that appears in GST Zen. And when you want to generate e-invoice, you select the particular GST number and go to e-invoicing. So now various options are available to you here. So you can go with our standard Excel, or we can customize, we can map your custom Excel to our software. So whatever, sometimes you generate Excel from your SAP or Oracle. So that can be mapped directly to our software and you can upload it. Now I'll be showing you the process of generation through our standard Excel. So this is the template you can download. I've already downloaded it and filled in some sample data. So as you can see, I have filled in the data for various transaction types for exports, regular B2B. I also have credit note. So here I will be generating the e-invoice for this data. So what I do is I go here and select the file. So once it gets uploaded, it will show me the summary of all the invoices that I have uploaded, as well as it will be give me a list. So one moment. Okay, so yeah, uploading the file now. Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, it will give me a summary of all the invoices that I've uploaded. So I've uploaded 12 invoices. The taxable amount is around 2 lakh, and these are the taxes for total taxes. This is the list of invoices I've uploaded, and e-invoice is not yet generated. So if I look at the PDF, it does not have any QR code or any IRN information. So now I'd be uploading it to the portal. So you can see I'm getting this notification that e-invoice is generated. And all these yellow circles will get converted into green text. There's one error as well. So we can see the error and then correct the information and re-upload. So now you can see there's a QR code as well as IRN and acknowledgement date and number. So if you want to view the error, you can go to the particular invoice number and correct the issue. After correction, you can re-upload. The second method that is there in GST Zen is you can go through the billing software. So the option is available here, create invoice through the billing software. Select the date. I'll just select today's date. I can select the recipient from the customer master that is already there in GST Zen. Select the product from the product master. Let's say FY quantity, and then save the invoice. Once it is saved, I can click on generate e-invoice. So once it is generated, it will give you the IRN, acknowledgement date and number, as well as I can generate the e-way bill from here directly just by giving the vehicle number, transport mode, and simultaneously I have generated the e-way bill as well. So if I see the PDF here, I can see the e-way bill details are also populated. So somebody in the webinar had a question regarding e-way bill PDF. So now we are also providing the e-way bill PDF separately. So if you just want to download the e-way bills PDF separately, you can download it from the sales register in GST Zen. Okay, so I've shown you two methods of generation. Now I'll be moving to the API method. Okay, so there is the URL. This is the URL to which we post the data. This is my JSON of the invoice. Now I will be generating the invoice. So when I send this to the e-invoice portal, it will give me a result. So I'm getting an error. So as you can see, IRN cannot be generated with a document date prior to 7 days from today. So what date I've given here is 22nd of April. So now, as you can see, as Venu sir has explained, you cannot generate e-invoice for a document that is 7 days prior to today's date. So if I try to generate an e-invoice of a document dated 22nd of April, I am getting this error. Let's see what
This is,
happens if
yeah, but even before you change this, so some of the people have asked the question that, okay, on 30th month end is my invoice, but invoice date, but I will be processing it on 5th, the 6th. This is where you got to be very clear that if you are doing within 7 days, it will happen, but prior to, if you are doing before that, it will not happen. Bharti, can you change the date and try for the valid date?
Yeah, so now I've changed it to 29th of April. So now you can see it is generated.
Perfect.
And you can see the acknowledgement date is 3rd of May. Time is 3:55.
Yeah. So this brings to another important point is you need to have a tool wherein every 5 days you read the data from your books of accounts, you read the data from the government portal and see if there are any invoices where e-invoice is not generated. Because after 7 days, you will not be able to generate it. And we have seen the issues if you are not generating invoice within 7 days, the penalties that are there. This is where you will be, when you use tools like GST, then you will be able to, on a real-time basis, keep tracking that wherever the e-invoices is missing. Please continue.
Okay, so this is how it will work. We have seen the error and we have seen how it would work if we are generating within the time frame that is given by the government. Now let me show you the tool which Venu sir just mentioned, that how you'd get the latest data from the portal and compare it with your books. So in here, there's a quick actions menu where you can see various services are available. You can download your GSTR1 return data 2A, 2B. If you just want to download the data, you can go here. And if you want to reconcile, you can go to this tab. So if you want to stay current and just see whether the data has been auto-populated. So you'll be able to see the data under sales register versus GSTR1, but the data does not get auto-populated before 3 days. That is the average time for auto-population of data. If you want the data to be more current than that, you go for sales register versus GSTR1 e-invoices. It will compare the data with e-invoices generated. And this will compare with what data has gotten auto-populated in GSTR1. Okay. So you can log in with username, password, or with OTP, and then select the data you want to download. Okay, so this is more current. I can select and download the data from the government portal for May. And once it gets downloaded, this yellow circle will turn into a green tick. The next step would be you uploading your sales register. You can directly upload it through this method. So you can use R format or you can upload your Excel. You just have to map this Excel to GST Zen software. So the software would know which data has to be picked up from which column of your Excel. So customer GST number, from which column of the Excel is it coming? So I'm selecting recipient GST number. Similarly, you provide all the other fields. Once this is done, you run the matcher. It will ask for two parameters, maximum days difference and maximum tax amount difference, that you can provide as per your preference. After running the matcher, you can download the reports. So the reports are available based on invoice date, and you have record date for e-invoicing. So I have a sample report here with me. So this is what the reconciliation report looks like. So the invoices that are matched, so it means that it is there in your books as well as present in the portal. It will be highlighted in green, and the invoices highlighted in yellow are present only in books. So these are the invoices you'll need to focus on. It will show you that for these invoices you have not generated the e-invoice, and then you would need to take action to generate these e-invoices. So you would be current. We recommend that you do it every 5 days so that you do not miss out on generating the e-invoice for any invoice which is there only in books. Also, there might be some cases where it is only present in the portal. That happens when you have generated, let's say, directly, because it was in the nick of time, you just generated, you had to send the goods and you just uploaded it to the portal without making the corresponding entry in your books, or you canceled it in your books after 24 hours but you were not able to cancel it in the portal. So in those cases it would be present only in portal. So at the time of filing GSTR1, you would need to make sure that corresponding effect has been made in the portal as well as in the books. So these are the cases you need to be careful about. The second thing is, now that since your supplier, let's say, is applicable for e-invoicing and he has given you an e-invoice, so you can verify it through a JSON, plus it will auto populate in your GSTR2A as well. So what you can do is you can verify that the e-invoice given to you is genuine by downloading the current month's GSTR2A, and again you can upload your purchase register, run the reconciliation matcher, and download the report. The report is very similar to the report I've just shown you, and it has the same ramifications. So if, let's say, a customer has given you an e-invoice, within 24 hours he might have cancelled it, so it will not appear in your GSTR2A, and you can be vigilant that way and ask the supplier why it is not appearing in GSTR2A even though you have given me an e-invoice. And so you will be careful in making the payment to the supplier. Okay, so this is for e-invoicing. We are also introducing a new API. So while generating the e-invoice, you can get the address as well as the status of a particular GST number. So what you can do is, this also works with a post method. This is the URL. It will have a token, a header, which will be the API key from the GST Zen account, and in the request JSON would be the GST number for which you are fetching the data. So you can provide any GST number here and make the request. It will fetch the details from GST Zen's database. So first it will tell you whether the GST number is valid. So, and then if it is valid, you'd get other details like their legal name, their status. So whether it is active or suspended or cancelled, you would know before generating an e-invoice. And then you would also get other details such as the PAN number, the state, as well as their registration date. Let's see what happens when a GST number is not valid. So let's check. This is the result you would get. So for this GST number, it is not valid. So validity is false. If had it been a valid GST number and cancelled or suspended, the status would have said that it is suspended or cancelled instead of active. Okay, so this is how the API validation or search GST number API, you can call it. This is a new product that we are offering. Plus, another new product that we have introduced is Notice Tracker. So here you can fetch and keep a record of.
This notice tracker, I would say, is one of the best thing, and everyone should be using this application of notice tracker. It will, on a real-time basis, get you the status of notices that are there on the portal. There's a small agent which will run in the background. It will help you to fetch it. Bharti will do a demo.
Yeah, just give me a moment, please. This agent actually helps in connecting GSTs in to the GST portal for the purpose of fetching the e-invoices.
Participants, all the questions that came up in the chat which I have not taken up, I have replied in the chat itself. In case if there's any question that is still unanswered, feel free to ask the question.
Okay, so all you need to do is enter your username, password, and provide the captcha here. Okay, so I think the password is incorrect here. So can you give me the password? Do you have it?
1 minute. Okay, anyhow, there are some notices that were downloaded.
Yeah, right. So the notices that we have already downloaded, it will show us the list. If we have not checked the notices, you would have this icon of new here. So that means we have not checked those notices, or these were recently downloaded after you click the button sync. So when we are logged in and click on sync, all the new notices that are there in the portal will get downloaded here. Once you open the particular notice, it will lose this new status. You can also contact us through WhatsApp or email if you require help in replying to the particular notice. You can get a list of all the notices as well as their PDFs in one screen. Keep a track of it in GSTZ. Okay, so please let us know if you have any other questions regarding any part of the demo or any questions relating to e-invoicing.
So this brings us to end of today's session. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel for any latest updates and notifications on the sessions that we take up. And anyone who have some doubts, you can always reach to us. Our support number is here in the chat. You can always reach to us in this page where our team, you can over email or WhatsApp, will assist you in various queries that are relating to GST. And a copy of today's recording is also available. You can always watch, and the people who have registered will also get a copy of the presentation. If there are no questions, maybe we can conclude the session. And I thank each and everyone for taking your time out and attending